Hey, look at that. It's Conker jumping in Rare's ranchiest platformer, Conker's Bad Fur Day. However, what if you don't want to jump? Well, too bad. This is a platformer and you're gonna have to jump. What were you expecting? And yet, despite this game's pretty simple platforming, there is surprisingly a lot to cover here. Through researching speedruns, making creative pathing, and finding uses for obscure glitches that would seemingly have no real use, I have managed to lower the total required jumps by a good amount. Literally every single area has multiple interesting saves to comment on. I even discovered a new glitch I didn't find in my research, while another skip allows you to finish an entire area with under 10 jumps. With that said, we will also be covering the required jumps needed without those glitches. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. During the beginning of the game, we arrive at our first obstacle, which can be skipped, at least theoretically. By dropping down on this waterfall, you could warp up to the top of the bridge, saving 3 jumps. However, this hasn't been replicated since this clip by ARM, so naturally I gave my go at figuring this warp out. I throw myself at the waterfall randomly, hoping something clicks, and while it seems like I am getting close with all Conker's jittering, I never actually warp. Which means we already have to jump 3 times in order to get to the top and pull this lever with a 4th jump. If the warp worked, we would only be at 1 jump, so that kinda sucks. To avoid jumping 2 more times while backtracking, we drop down to the bottom and walk through this tunnel, saving 1 jump. After unlocking the frying pan, we jump another 2 more times to smack this gargoyle. I tried to save a jump with the crouch jump here, but it just barely doesn't reach, and adds 2 more jumps to the counter. This puts the current jump counter at 10, which is a little high for the tutorial. However, if the warp was consistent, you would half the counter, putting us at 5 total jumps. But I obviously don't count that since it's not repeatable. Later on, we'll have some cool skips and warps that actually impact the amount of jumps required. The beehive mission requires 0 jumps, and we get to the next level without any issues. Now, I'll show you how you can skip jumping on these sentient metal boxes to get to this button. You still have to feed Marvin the mouse though, since the button won't be pressed down if you don't, which is something I realized while doing research for this game. It really does not want to be sequence break, like at all. So skipping sections is almost never possible, except for this one part which you will see later. The Eduardo on YouTube showcased this warp he found while messing around, and unlike the previous warp, is actually repeatable. However, it's pretty hard to do, and I actually discovered a more consistent way of doing it before getting it with the frying pan method. If you just run into the wall with enough speed, it'll trigger the warp way quicker, allowing us to access the money and switch with only 1 jump. Or 2 jumps, since Conker apparently can't walk up that tiny ledge. Still, it saves 2 jumps from the 4 jumps needed the normal way, and we will be using that warp again, so it will save even more jumps in a little bit. This is just a tiny taste of the shortcuts to come. Next is the pitchfork fight, where you would normally jump in order to avoid his attacks. But we won't be doing that. Instead, we could just barely run out of the way, beating Frankie jumpless. Unfortunately, we have to jump once to leave the barn. Now, we do the same warp to access the 2nd floor of the barn with only 1 jump, saving us the additional jump required the normal way. Once inside, we do 0 jumps by slowly walking across the beams and avoiding this cool boss skip since you have to jump in order to do it. For the first phase, 0 jumps are required. However, phase 2 needs you to do 3 jumps in order to hit this button. Then when escaping the basement, you can just swim into the ladders and avoid any jumping. At least that is what I think at first. But get the idea to try damage boosting up with some help from the water. It didn't work out on my first attempt, but my second try went way better, making only 1 jump required to leave the basement. Pretty impressive. Next, I found out you can just run through this guy and get on this tomb that way to avoid jumping on it, which will be useful later on as well. These ladders don't require us to jump, and we can just walk off this ledge to activate the ground pound. Then we carefully make our way down to activate the bees and start collecting those, which is where shit gets real. I start by getting the one by the entrance, and despite trying my best, have to jump to obtain them. Then using the clip once again to get the one on the roof and on the side of the bucket with 5 jumps. Without the clip, it's 7 jumps. Taking some inspiration from the speedrun of this game, we jump off this ledge while timing Conker's hover as late as possible to just barely get on this ledge. You could just jump on here normally, but it's not as fast. We can just about make it on this rock and get all the way to the final beast with a total of 4 jumps. Then with one last jump to leave this pen and get to bouncing on some bulbs, which count as 2 jumps, finally allowing us to get the 2 last monies of the area. That was a lot, but a pretty cool route if I do say so myself. This puts the total required jumps for Barn Boys at
22
with the warp, and
27
without it, putting total jumps so far at 30.
If you are wondering why I am using this AI voice, it's cause I can't fucking count.
Next, we enter the poop region, and oh man, what an unfriendly area for this challenge. But before we get to that, I have to address Conker doing automatic jumps as a side effect from doing another action. I don't count these jumps like this animal smash or Conker auto jumping on things when you get close to them, since I'm not the one initiating the jump, and the use isn't for platforming. In a sense. Hopefully you understand. And with that out of the way, this animal smash doesn't count as a jump, but if you disagree with me, just add 1 to the counter. I'll also mention the amount you need to add when we use this move again later on. We can avoid jumping into this rope by simply running off the ledge. However, we still have to jump off this rope since there's no way to simply let go. Then, with an additional jump, we get across the shithole with only 2 jumps. Or not. Yet another tiny ledge that Conker can't walk up. Freaking stubby legs, asshole. Aren't squirrels supposed to be agile? Like, what is this? Next, we have to get the shitter juice. And to my knowledge, there is no way to avoid any jumps here. You have to jump a total of 5 times to get the juice. Ouch. Thankfully, you can avoid any jumping during the bullfight with some simple baiting. The challenge comes after the fight. There are 2 ways of doing this section. The speedrun way or the creative normal way, if that makes sense. Surprisingly, they both take the same amount of jumps. Let's look at the speedrun method first, dubbed shit clip. When you drop down and the screen fades to black, hold the A button down to cue a jump mid-air. Then immediately hover through the wall and around to the required money we need. This skips having to activate this context-sensitive pad for Conker to learn how to swim underwater. However, since we did that, we now need to use the momentum we gained from a full send jump to dive under this wall so we can leave this area with 3 total jumps. Now, how does a non-speedrun route do this and also just 3 jumps? Well, this is where we learn some cool new tech that will also be useful later on. By running off this ledge and pressing A mid-air to go into dive, Conker gains some height, allowing us to clear this gap without jumping. Then with a single jump, we learn how to swim underwater, making it possible to get to the money with our second jump, and leave it with the third. I found this tech to be quite cool and was something I discovered completely on my own, so I'm a little proud, you could say. Either way, this will put our total amount of jumps at 11, meaning
43
total jumps in general. Don't worry, we still have levels that will only take single-digit jumps to complete, so this counter will slow down soon. Now, with a poop ball in hand, we can grab the money on top of Poo Mountain with a single jump, open the Great Mighty Poo door with 0 jumps, and unlock the next area we're covering with 1 jump. I tried damage boosting onto this quirk, but sadly, it didn't work. Like I said, this game hates being sequence break. What? That tower is another area that isn't super friendly to this challenge, but it does have a cool warp we can do. Sadly, this level also has a tiny ledge that Conker, for some ungodly reason, can't walk up. These stone stairs are fine, but this wooden plank, nope, impossible, too high. Anyway, up this elevator is where we get to our second big warp. However, let's look at the glitchless route to get an idea of how much we are actually saving by doing the glitch. To finish this route off, we jump perfectly from this money and hover just in time to grab this lever. After that, we just walk off and tank the damage, ending with 10 total jumps. This warp is used in the speedrun of this game and is pretty cool looking. It's called Bat's Tower Skip, and you will see why in just a second. After having done our first jump on this elevator, we jump like this above the big trunk and hover under the wall by said trunk. clipping us into the wall. Next, we jump again to warp all the way to the top of the tower. Like I said, pretty cool. Then we just follow what we did earlier with no glitches needed, and end up with a total of 6 jumps, saving us 4. Next, we have to bring back these missing cogs, and with some well-used jumps, only need 3 to get all of them. Unfortunately, there is no way to get on this spinner without jumping. I tried to find a new clip since Conker was doing his weird jittering again, but no luck. This means before entering the vault, we end up at 10 jumps with the warp and 14 without it. For a platform heavy section such as this, that isn't bad. The vault doesn't really have any interesting challenges to this challenge, so I'll just quickly showcase the areas where we have to jump. 1 into the vault, 1 to grab the lever here, 1 to get out, then 4 to crush the brass balls, and then finally 1 to leave. Plus 2 jumps to get the money on the ledge here. Putting the vault section at 8 total jumps. Add the bat section from earlier and you get 18 with the clip and 22 without, totaling at 61 jumps. The legendary boss fight isn't all that interesting. All the jumps you have to do is 1 before the fight, 3 during it, and we save a few jumps by just walking off this edge here. But we have to jump 3 times to access the next area. And yet, now we get to the most jump-friendly section in the entire game. So much so that the area requires only single-digit amount of jumps. There is another area that is even more jump-friendly with glitches, but that's for later. While this area is jump-friendly, these dinosaurs certainly are not.
Jesus Christ, man. Oh yeah, this is this shit. Oh, where did you go? What? How the fuck did I survive?
Normally you would jump around them to avoid taking damage, but since we can't do that, I just sort of bash my head into the wall until I finally get up. Our first jump comes quite early on in the shape of the statue, and if you count these anvil pounds as jumps, I don't, just add 6 to the counter at the end. That includes the one from earlier. The next troubling part is when we reunite with this graveholder guy, cause this time we can't walk through him for some reason. Thankfully, this baby dino segment goes by with no problems. Oh come on, not this guy again. Can we at least walk through him this time? Yes we can. It's kinda tricky though because of these cavemen. This allows us to get the money and this nice hat without any jumps, which means we get to piss on some assholes. Golden showers for everyone! This club section also doesn't require any jumps, as long as we keep our health up for the fall damage that comes from dropping down these holes. Even if you can't jump during the bomb run, what comes straight after is a little worrying. A giant lava jumping section. However, as long as you're at full health and don't mess up the movement, you'll be fine. Now we're at what I always considered to be the hardest part of the game when I was a kid. Thankfully, as an adult, this section is a breeze, but that is without the jumping restrictions. At certain areas on the track, you end up losing lots of speed if you don't jump, and for the final part where you have to roll into this cage, you just die if you don't jump. But what if I told you that I found a way to beat this section jumpless? Yeah, it's actually quite simple. Since this area is the only place where not jumping is seriously impacting your speed, you can gain on the other racers on the rest of the track no problem. However, the final part is where it gets a little tricky. I tried several times, just throwing myself at this ramp, hoping that I would somehow magically fly in, but it was always either too low or just off base entirely. Then something magical actually happened.
Okay, it works.
I don't know how this works exactly, but I think it has something to do with how the ramp is just slightly higher on the left side, allowing you to cross the entire dip without jumping if you have the correct amount of speed. It probably also has something with how you curve mid-air or steer, but I could be wrong. Next is the Colosseum, which doesn't cause any problems until the boss fight against this tiny peepee guy. Man, I can just never have a break from this asshole. Because of how his butt stomp causes a big ass shockwave, getting close to him without taking damage and falling off the dinosaur is almost impossible.
Jesus.
The way I got around this was by simply running away from him and the wave before charging him and just praying that he didn't do the same attack again.
What? Wait, what? Oh, you can attack over them. Cool. Okay, you have to time it like perfectly.
I'm dead.
What?
It took a while, but eventually he went down.
Nice.
In turn, we have to do 2 jumps to get up to the big babe, finishing this area with, wait for it,
5
jumps in total. That is fucking wild. However, to leave, we have to jump twice again to return to Windy, so let's just say
7
jumps in total. Well, actually, it's 5 jumps, since you can avoid having to jump out of the water by running off this edge and diving mid-air just at the right point to land on the edge here. New record. Once returning to Windy, we have an easy time getting the beehive back again, and do this pixel perfect jump to save 2 from the intended path for this money. Then comes climbing Spiral Mountain, I would like to call it, where we have to jump over these worms to get up top and roll on this barrel. I was so sure we had to jump at least once here, but luckily we don't. Here's how. First, you need full HP. Then, full send it while hugging this wall to pass the first worm. If you do that, the second worm will bite us at the perfect time, so we just barely get past it. The same goes for the third worm. Fourth worm, however, might get you 2 or 3 times before you can leave it in your dust. For the fifth and final one, you just have to run along this edge and it's GG, go next. Spooky is one of the areas I thought would add most to the jump counter, but surprisingly it's the one with the least amount, even if it's the hardest one as well. In fact, you can pull this lever without jumping, thanks to this barrel-like tunnel. Shooting the zombies is kind of a pain, but with enough distance, it's manageable. Then these skeleton worms show up and make me think I have to insert our first jump, especially because of these 2 assholes. However, by some miracle, I managed to get past them, and only have to jump once to enter the mansion. Crazy beginning. This leads us into the bat section, which is just a bunch of flying around and shitting on villagers. But the ending of this segment is the interesting part. By doing a very precise maneuver with the last villager, and flying like this under the lever, we get to skip the entire key gathering phase of this area. I know, it's fucking crazy. We only have to jump twice to get across this beam, which lets us leave this area and finish it with 3 goddamn motherfucking mind-blowing jumps, beating our previous record of 4. But how many jumps does this method actually save, and can you get a similar result without using this exploit? Well, not really. This is where you get dropped off after the bat section normally, and if you try to get the first key without jumping, you get fucking mauled by a gang of giant bats. So 1 jump to take those out, and then you can get the first key, no problem. Second key comes easily as well, but that's where the fun ends. Using the same path we used for the first key, we can get on this ladder and do our second jump to land here. This allows us to do 2 more jumps to pull this lever, which the exploit spawned us on, putting 4 jumps to the previous 2. So it is a slight increase. A lot less than I was expecting though. However, to leave, we unfortunately have to go through Hangover and jump an additional 3 times. Then a 4th to enter the next to last area of the game, putting our total for Spooky at 7, or in total
86,
with the exploit, and 10 in total
99.
without it.
We're definitely hitting 100 on the glitchless counter.
The question now is, will we stay under 125 the next quarter mark, or will we go over it? I don't know, to be honest. It could go either way. The last 2 areas are heavy combat sections, but the one we're headed to now also has a lot of obstacles we gotta jump to avoid. Hey, at least this annoying pushing segment is doable without jumping thanks to this ladder here. The awesome beach run is also no worries, and this trend keeps up until these laser traps poke their ugly mugs out. My plan for the laser traps is to try and crawl under as many as possible, and those that I can't, I tank. With that in mind, I have to take these shootouts super seriously to avoid taking too much damage. This strat made the first laser segment possible jumpless, easily. However, the second one was looking quite bleak with these 3 lasers I already had to tank. Thankfully, this time the chocolates are on my side, helping me with restoring whatever damage I tank. But that doesn't mean I can slack on the shootouts. I still have to avoid taking too much damage because this place is filled with lasers that you have to jump over. And if you take more than 2 hits from the teddies, that's it. Memorization, aim, and patience is key here. I got all the way to the end of this laser section and had only taken 2 hits from the teddies. But because of the double laser, I couldn't get past without dying. I also had eaten all of the other chocolates except for the one that was teasing me mid-air there. I attempted to fickle with the lasers on the walls, hoping that the hitboxes are different enough there to only blow up the one below. Surprisingly enough, my plan worked, just not in the way I intended, making this later segment barely doable without jumping, as long as you don't take more than 2 hits while fighting the teddies and eat all the chocolates you find. Next we have some more shootouts, fry some crispy and fresh squirrel meat, and get to this minigun / turret section. Despite trying to damage boost into the rope to avoid jumping, we have to jump twice to take this teddy out. Then once more to enter the gun to trigger the teddy attack. After that, we shoot more teddies and rescue our buddy rodent. The fucking pussy. Then we encounter our next hurdle in the shape of this floaty. Since I couldn't quite seem to swim up, I thought we had to jump in. But that's when this happened. Thanks to Conker's jittering finally paying off for once, we can get on this floaty without jumping. We rocket launch some more teddies and have to jump out of this pond. Now we get to the acid tunnel where things get a little interesting. Hold up. I made a little mistake. So you remember in the intro when I said that we won't be counting jumps that Conker does as a byproduct of me walking into a vehicle or pressing B on a context sensitive pad? Well, there's an exception to that. And that's right here. You see, this tank doesn't initiate an automatic jump like any other vehicle in the game. So you have to press the A button and jump into it in order to get inside it. I didn't count this the first time that I played the game, or when I initially did this challenge. So here's the thing. I'm gonna be like kind of lazy about this and just whenever you hear the sound and see this counter go up, I don't know where it is, that's another jump that you have to do in order to get into the tank. There is like one section where, because of a cutscene, you don't have to jump in order to get into it, and it works like any other vehicle in the game. But that's just the one exception. Anyway, the final counter will also have these jumps included in it. It's just easier this way for me to get the video out because I'm... Fuck me, I've been working on this for like a month now and I'm gonna lose it. The only way to save jumps is by damage boosting across the ponds. Sure, nothing revolutionary. However, to avoid taking damage from these spiders, I found this nonsensical strat. I don't know why or how this works, but I'll take it. Despite trying to minimize damage while boosting as much as possible, we still have to jump a total of 6 times to finish this section. That hurts. Hopefully the tower turret one isn't as bad. Well, we already have to jump once to lower this bridge, so it isn't looking good. But with some help from a speedrunning strat, we managed to blow up 2 blocks of this tower, meaning we only need to lower this second bridge to collapse this tower, and do our 3rd jump to enter the next boss fight. And thankfully, this entire boss fight is beatable jump. Are you fucking kidding me? Now with that big teddy out of the way, we only have to escape the shithole to finish the war arc off. I used the same strat from before, tank as many lasers as possible while ducking under the ones that we can. However, since there are no chocolates around during our escape, it forces us to jump at least 3 times. This makes the fights pretty hard, but I'm pretty confident that this game's shitty aiming controls by now. You suck major ass. Yo, how do you snipe? Bullshit. Nah, you pun! You suck ass! Fuck up! You can go die in a ditch. Wow, you're so cool. With that, we only need 1 mass jump to get off this barbed wire, totaling at 20 jumps for its war, or 21 if you don't count the floaty clip. That means we're at
106
jumps with the clip and
120
without it. Not looking good for our goal of going under 125, especially for the glitchless route. Yet, the last area of the game doesn't have a lot of platforming, mainly just shooting, so there is still hope. I completely forgot about this. This is getting old. We can save 1 jump by jumping in from the side here. Then we have a crazy Matrix-inspired shootout, which is pretty awesome. Yep, there is a... Dad, could you carry me, please? Please carry mom. Boom! Plot twist of the century. Final boss is a fucking alien. Now, like usual, I attempt to damage boost into this lever, but couldn't get it since I just kept getting 1-tapped. That puts us at 124 jumps in total. Can we avoid jumping during the final boss fight and stay within our goal? Or will this asshole get the better of us? Maybe, I guess we'll see. This is one of the rudest aliens I have ever met. Not that I've met a lot of them, but still. fuck you. When it does the spin attack, you're intended to jump in order to avoid it. And because of that, there's no other way to realistically find an opening when it does that attack. Only when it goes in for a chomp can we block its attack and get the required hits in. This essentially makes the entire fight RNG based, which as you can probably tell, doesn't jive with me all that well.
I'm getting cucked. Fuck me. Shit dick, fuck me in the ass. You suck!
Especially when the game begins robbing me of my win. Screw you!
Yes? What? A punch? Are you fucking serious? Fly! Hello! Look, it's suddenly different. Why is it suddenly different? It's such bullshit!
Thankfully, the only thing you need to beat this guy is patience to hold out until the game decides you can win. And with that, Conker's Bad Fur Day is confirmed beatable with
110.
jumps minimum, which means we accomplished our goal. Now, can it be lowered? Maybe, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some strats or tactics that I just don't know exist or are yet to be discovered. There's also the question of if there's any major differences between the remake and the original. And if you want me to cover that or any other video topic related to this game, just hit the like button, comment and stuff, and I'll probably maybe do it. Thank you for watching this far. It truly means a lot that you would dedicate, however long this video is, I have no idea as of this point, but still, thank you. And go check out this Conker video that I did on how many chocolates you need to pick up in order to beat the game. It's quite entertaining, I'd say.
Will you stop beating me? I'm not beating him.